So Erin Twamley and Josh Sneideman are friends, parents of daughters, educators, and authors of STEM publications from blogs to children's books. And after completing their first series with Nomad Press for middle school students, they have created a new series for upper elementary students called STEM Superheroes. And the series features stories, careers, and superpowers of 26 diverse women in an A to Z format. And I guess are you all talking about the STEM superheroes or the energy superheroes or both today?
We are, am I off mute?
Hopefully. You are, yep.
Good, okay. Hi everyone, I'm Erin Twamley. We're gonna talk about the women in energy superheroes today. Our first book is available and we'll reference that. But today we're really looking to kind of crowdsource some ideas for energy superheroes and careers that we're struggling with on how to kind of showcase in this new book series.
Great, well, go right ahead. Welcome, Erin and Joshua.
Well, thank you. We're glad to be here. Josh and I have been on many clean calls in a prior life, it seems like, when we were both at Department of Energy, working in the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, focused on energy literacy efforts. Josh and I started writing back then, and since then we've written, I think, 5 books together, and this is our 6th book together. We are really interested in making sure that there are resources for girls and resources for elementary kids. So today we're going to highlight kind of this book series and kind of our efforts and what we're looking for from the clean community, which I've already gotten messages from some of you today about good connections and resource points. I'm hoping that most of you are familiar with the energy literacy framework here on the screen. We also did a great TED Ed video called A Guide to the Energy of the Earth for educators that's almost reached 1 million views. So it's at like 800,000 views at this point in time. And as Reb so kindly mentioned, this was our first kind of book series that we did aimed at middle school students that also features STEM activities. So we've been in this kind of climate and energy space for a while, and we are hoping to share a little bit more with you about our effort and the movement. And I'm going to turn it to Josh, who's going to share kind of some of the data points and why we're really focusing on this elementary niche.
Yeah, so thanks, Erin, and hello, clean community. It's nice to be on a call with everyone. And you know, since I left DOE, I've been really focused in the career side and the career path awareness for students and how important it is to reach young people early and often with their career exposure. You know, you guys, I'm sure, have heard people say in the education community, don't ask students what they want to be when they grow up. Maybe ask them what problems they want to solve. And so we're in a problem-solving environment, but there's still such a consensus of research out there on these reports on the screen. Generation STEM being one of my favorite. That's a report from the Girl Scouts about the motivations of young girls in the STEM, in STEM. And 92% of girls identify with they want a job that helps people. And so, you know, what we're really trying to do is provide resources that help students and teachers recognize that there are careers out there that are helping make the world a better, safer, you know, more resilient and livable place. And so that's really what we're trying to do, but we're trying to bring it down to a grade level where it's kind of funny. So I do teacher trainings all the time. And I ask this question at teacher trainings. I ask, do your students ever ask you, when will I ever use this? And middle school teachers get that question all the time. When will I use it? And every middle school teacher gets that. So it's sort of a universal truth. And we want to just bring it back a little bit earlier in the elementary range to start to seed the thought patterns of young people about the opportunities in climate and really this book in energy. So, you know, if you haven't seen this report, Google wrote an interesting report. It's actually about careers in computer science, but I think it's relevant for climate and energy careers, their report said, how do you get more girls and more diversity into computer science? And it was simply through exposure and encouragement. So that was their big highlight, that exposing girls, exposing students really is a critical point in their career affinities. And this was a quote from that. Can you go back one slide, Erin? This is to the front, to the start. Nope, the other direction. Yeah. So for that report, back to the reports. Yeah. The consensus study report, promising practices for addressing the underrepresentation of women in STEM. These two quotes come out of this report. And the first one's really, it's kind of stunning. So if we can go to the next slide, is that early socialization provides the first departure point in gender disparities in engineering careers. And so it just about who's talking to the students in their early formative years and telling them they could be good at this. And so boys are always playing traditionally, the report talks about how they traditionally are playing with more taking things apart, and girls' exposure are through mentors, through someone exposing them and saying, you would be great at this. And so that's really critical. And that's really the goal, what we're trying to get to. We're going to get to the point in the slides where we really ask for your input. But where's that other quote, Erin? That was right here. Yeah. So just a brief exposure to women scientist role models enhances students' identification with interest in STEM. And so that's really the goal. That's the point we wanted to bring to the clean community with our hyper focus on these books about superheroes, everyday superheroes, is to talk about the importance of role models. And, just to highlight the title, Everyday Superheroes, what we're really trying to do is, Erin and I, we both have daughters. I have 3 daughters, and I want my girls to not feel like it's exceptional to meet a woman engineer, a woman climate scientist, that it's normal. It's an everyday thing. And so we're trying to change that conversation. So to help, all students. And then from that Draw a Scientist, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Draw a Scientist, but 7 in 10 students out of thousands of students, they're still drawing men in the science fields. And that's actually more than 50% of girls still draw males. So, and then 98% of men still draw men. And so we're not seeing young boys identify that girls are scientists, and we're still not seeing a majority of young girls identify that girls are scientists. And so, that's our goal. That's our goal, is to really work towards that, especially in the climate and energy fields, to show role models for building a more resilient future.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I've got this slide. Let's engage girls in energy, because our work is also not just about developing the books, but also about engaging them with hands-on opportunities. And we just wanted to share a little bit of background about kind of the why elementary age. We've seen a lot of programs, camps, mentorships, things focused at the middle school grade level and up. And we truthfully believe, Josh and I wholeheartedly, that that's too late. That by the time a girl is going into middle school, and if they haven't had that exposure to STEM or STEM careers, that we're missing the boat, if you will. And books is a great way to engage students, because reading is one of the greatest predictors of youth outcomes, especially in STEM. And by 2nd grade, as Josh mentioned, we're seeing that socialization and lack of interest and lack of pursuit for girls on whether or not they decide that they enjoy STEM-based subjects. And we believe that energy intersects all of STEM, right? All science, technology, engineering, and math. And so by using a book, we can not only educate kids, but caregivers, teachers, and librarians who might not be familiar with these jobs as climate scientists, as engineers, as drillers, as power line technicians and line workers. So we are working on a book series. The first book is out there. You can find it. It's called Everyday Superheroes, Women in STEM Careers. It features 26 women, all of diverse backgrounds and pathways, who work in STEM fields. And so that was kind of a broad brushstroke. Given our history, both as working at ERE and in the energy and climate fields, this book, Women in Energy, is what we're working on right now. Probably should have been our first book, but it'll come out in 2022, and it will feature 26 women who are working to power our planet through that kind of sustainable future and lens. So we will have a climate scientist. I actually just got off of a Zoom call with Dr. Kimberly Miner. I don't know if anybody's familiar with her and her work, but she's also an If Then ambassador, and she works on permafrost, and she is one of the professors who actually just recorded that there are microplastics on Mount Everest. So they've been taking samples in different locations. So our book will, feature kind of the breadth and the depth of the energy careers for students. We're also working on future books of women in engineering, just so that you can kind of see that we're building this kind of model out. We've got a great publisher in Minnesota. They're called WiseInk. We've got an awesome illustrator that we're going to be working with. Her name is Adjoa Hernandez. Our book designer here is Kim Moorhead. She's actually works for Disney. And NEED, who I think many of you are familiar with, the National Energy Education Development Project, are our nonprofit partner to make sure that this resource can get into the hands of kids. Obviously, we have other education partners, including Clean, Kid, Wind, REAP, the VEEPs, all of these kind of gurus who are doing work in this energy education sphere, right? We want your partnership and your involvement in helping about with these energy careers. Just to give you some highlights about the first book, I think my favorite quote actually that we got, right? We always ask for reviewers, is from a first grader, a little girl who said, "My favorite job is the environmental lawyer so that I can yell on behalf of the trees," right? So we want to resonate with girls and with kids and these jobs that are maybe unfamiliar with them or to them. Beyond the book, we are looking at creating kind of supplemental materials to support the learning, including coloring books, STEM trading cards, posters, other things. I think you might have the most interest in this new collaboration, which is a 100% recyclable kit of cardboard materials and connectors with challenges for students to create. So it's a kit that can go home. So today I was talking actually with a power line technician, and we thought, hey, a great challenge could be, how could you create 3 poles out of these cardboard pieces? They have to stand tall, it has to measure a certain degree, right? As something kind of hands-on and tangible to go with a book about energy careers. On the right, we also have something called STEM trading cards. If you're not familiar with them, they're out of a nonprofit called Science Delivered. You can go to stemtradingcards.org. They're a great way for teachers and librarians to introduce STEM careers in the classroom. They're actually really small, just like the size of a baseball card, that share some snippets about some of the superheroes in the book. This woman, Vanessa here, she's actually in our first book. And so we've seen a variety of activities and uses with these STEM trading cards. So we anticipate developing out these kind of components specifically for women in energy. But what we need your help with is that we want to ensure that we're sharing the stories and the careers of energy superheroes, and that some of the challenges that we're seeing in writing about these energy careers and some of these women, hoping that the clean community can help us address or make sure that we haven't overlooked sectors of the energy or women that we should be looking at to feature. Before I get to that point where we'll ask kind of for your feedback, I just wanted to show you what a sample page looks like in the book if you're not familiar with our work. So these are actually blown up pages. They're full pages that are illustrated. On the left-hand side, generally explains the career. So electrical engineer, what do they do? What is the vocabulary that students need to know? What are the kind of the questions that an electrical engineer might work on? And important factoids like power profile that a student and teacher will know. So this is not a typical picture book, and you wouldn't read this whole book to your kid at night, and a teacher is not going to read this, start to finish. It's a 90-page book about, but they will do snippets, right? Or they might get excited about just the illustration. So every superhero, and we're looking for 26 energy superheroes, will be featured with a full-page illustration like this that showcases who they are, what they might wear to work, what they might use in their work, and a little bit about them, a profile that's written at a 5th grade level, which is one of the challenges in this climate and energy sphere, is explaining what these amazing women do to a young audience. But that's where Josh and I come in to kind of share these profiles. I'll show you one more example just so that you can kind of get a feel of what we're trying to accomplish. So what we've seen is that 1st graders react because they like the illustrations. We've seen teachers react because they like the vocabulary and the introduction of the content. And we've seen superheroes themselves interact because they didn't know about all of the other superheroes that are out there doing similar work. Some other features of the book, we've got superpowers, which are STEM skills. We have 6 of them. We do an infographic type approach to kind of showcase what those superpowers are, like observation, communication, collaboration, problem solving, imagination and curiosity, data collection and analysis. So the book is kind of got some breadth to it as well. These are some sample careers and superheroes that we're looking at. Our list, we actually have a list of almost, I think, 40 plus women who we've started to collect their names and interests from different folks. But we are looking to the clean community to say, are there energy superheroes and careers we might not be thinking about? This is just a sample. This is not an exhaustive list, but we just wanted to share with you kind of the start of our thinking.
Can I add to that, Erin?
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
When we had a great call with Frank the other day, or I did, Frank was talking, this is obviously a book about energy, it's women in energy, but I think there's an obvious logical bridge to, resiliency and adaptation and those types of careers. And so, we'd love, I think, to reach out to add those profiles in the book. And then others have mentioned, like, just to add on what Erin was talking about here, we really want to look at from the community college level, the technician level, all the way up to the materials PhD scientist. Yes. And so it's 26 profiles is, there'll probably be sub profiles in there and other things, but we're, just so you understand, we're really trying to talk about line workers and heavy machinery, women that use heavy machinery, and then all the way up to the installers, and then the scientists and engineers. So, I think if that makes sense to you guys, but we're definitely looking for some input on your thoughts on that. And I'll let you keep taking slides away, Erin.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I've just really got some slides with some questions for the clean community, for things that we may have not thought about or things that you want to be sure that we highlight. And I think the first one would be on the careers to include or highlight, or questions that you have, or careers that you would want to see in a book like this. So I'll open it up so that if you want to raise your hand or type it in the chat. And we didn't want to give you the exhaustive list because we didn't want to skew you. We wanted it to kind of be authentic if there were things that you want to see.
This is awesome, Erin and Josh. Thank you so much. One thing that I'm thinking about is people who work in at the community level, advocating for community-based solar, some of the more advocacy or activist roles. That's like local grassroots organizers that are trying to figure out how to improve just both the access to renewables, not necessarily both on an individual scale, but also on a community scale, you know, where communities collectively go in and decide to organize around getting community solar or being able to have some kind of collective purchasing agreement. That kind of organizing type work, I think is really is such a key piece of it. And also just around the thinking about the unequal energy burdens that low income households bear and the work that's being done there. Yeah, I can send you, we're doing a video on this right now, and we pulled some of our stats from a report that was on like an energy efficiency council wrote, and there was a woman who did the statistics for that report that I'll send to you in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think even just looking at the video you just made, we do have a page in the back where we talk about resources for teachers and places to go to dig deeper. So I think, connecting with ACE and some of your online, digital resources so teachers can find that would be something we'd love to do. But that's a great point, community level organizing for sure.
I see people have got their hands up, but I'll let you two.
Oh, do I have to unmute
Yeah,
them?
you could. No, they can unmute themselves, but if
Okay.
you want to maybe stop screen sharing, then you can see everyone's cameras
Sure.
better.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, Laura, go ahead. Yeah, you're on mute though.
Thank you. I saw one of the last slides had a question on it. Should we use technician or installer?
Yeah.
My husband's a solar installer and he's moved to solar technician, and those are two incredibly different jobs. One, they require two different body types, and one you have to be up on the roof in 100-degree weather where the roof is 119 degrees. And yeah, I think it would be good to put those into two separate segments instead of wrapping them up into one.
No, and thank you for that feedback. That's something we actually that's more me than Josh of thinking about that and talking with different technicians and power line technicians, that we've kind of come to that agreement that they need to be distinct because the pathways are different and where they work and what they do. So thank you for that, Laura. Jim, you have your hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you. Thank you both to your fantastic work and your great books. So on two different levels of one, probably the lesser of them is if you are continuing to looking for electrical engineers and electricians, I know a good deal of women in San Francisco Bay Area and in different fields. So there's definitely connecting them, and these are people who love to communicate and like to work with the community. The other is one of just asking if you're looking for superheroes and looking for when can young students actually start to do things? Do they have to wait until they're 18 or 21 or 24? So they just have to study and be good and do things. What about students who are already beginning to take action on a community level? There are examples. And that takes some work. It's work that we've worked on because so many things you have to wait. I mean, if you're going to work on a 200,000 volt line, you really need the training, and you're not going to be an 8-year-old, right? If you're even going to work on a 120 volt panel and doing that, you're not going to do that. But there are things that are safe and don't take that level of training. And so, for example, a superpower is what we've discovered is that there are these cameras that kids can see where energy is being wasted and where it's being saved. And it's a lot of fun, and they're able to do things on a community level. So these are kids who are already doing this. If that's a thing of having an example for the younger people of, it's not just a matter of waiting. It's a matter of you can begin to be active now, and it's hands-on experience that then takes you later for the career.
That's a great comment, Jim. And in our first two books, we actually had 20 different labs that every student can do. And so a lot of those were focused on activism, like, write a letter, get involved, get engaged, take air samples, do things like that. So I think you're just encouraging us to think that way in this book too, to make sure that students aren't just left with profiles, but with action elements. So I think that's a definite yes, we need to do that.
Okay, and I'd also follow up that I think these students would, if you were interested, I'm sure these students would be glad to make something custom for your book. I mean, in other words, to work with that, make a video or be a profile. They're very active. They get that what they're doing is helping society now. So your book is in that same direction.
Jim, would you mind just messaging me your email and we can follow up with you after? Thanks.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great point. And the students are doing things now that we need to highlight. Sorry, my view on this, like,
I think Nancy had a question.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you.
Wow, thank you. This has been just great. And I loved what you just said, Jim. Just a couple of thoughts or questions. One is the acronym STEAM, in addition to STEM, and tying it in with the arts. I put more ideas about that in the chat. And I'm wondering, this may be a matter of working through ACE, but the extent to which there's a website that the students as well as teachers can follow up and find stories and videos, and even have it an exchange where people can be exchanging their experiences. And I'm thinking right here and now, Emily Corin, who's on the call today, was a molecular biologist and a young woman who just did a great little presentation. I want to send it to you. She just talked in a very relaxed way about being the project manager on 4 different summers in the Antarctica, where they were studying what was going on there. Those living stories that come through videos and actually have contact information that can be reached out to for later. Those were some thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's true, right? There's an appetite for these living stories, Nancy. And it's such in the digital world, it's a great way to get snippets of our book, right?
You know, I left out something really important I wanted to say. This fusion of the arts and writing in science communication, in public advocacy, and all the informal learning that CLEAN is about, the importance of featuring those as careers, legitimizing them. And the other concern I have is so much of that important work, if it's not in mainstream science or engineering, ends up going unpaid volunteer work or way underpaid. And so somehow building that consciousness in these fused interdisciplinary careers are very much about what most problem solving and doing good in the world are about. But treating those as careers people work for, starting, as you're saying, as volunteers or service learning in youth, but then anyhow, the point is clear.
No, thank you. And you raise a good point, because we don't want this book to be all technical. And Josh and I always grapple with the STEM versus STEAM, because we just want to be authentic in our showcase of those art-related careers. So, we'll take that into consideration. Eric, you've got a question or a comment for us. Nice to have you here.
Thanks a lot. This is a really great work. And I've just been having some conversations, including with Cheney just right before we got on, about the idea of storytelling. And I imagine part of these everyday superheroes is to these young women imagining themselves in careers. So I'm thinking, Cheney and I were talking about authentic storytelling from the perspective of the students, like of those 26, which 3 resonate with them, and how do they imagine themselves in those career pathways? That was one thought. And then the other thought was, I found a lot of success in both creating fictional characters, like fun actual superheroes, but we did a big like recycling team where we had like the Wasteful Witch and Captain Recycling, and we created these interactions. So if there's a way, an extension whereby some of these superheroes, the electrical grid coordinator and the solar and wind specialists, they're working together to solve a problem, then it gets to that superhero-esque.
Yeah. So we were actually thinking about organizing the book in teams, because none of these big, large-scale projects get done individually. Like a single solar installer doesn't go install these panels. It's a team approach.
Right.
And you've got your engineers and your installers and your planners and your lawyers, and it's a big team, and everyone plays an important role. So absolutely, that's definitely what the goal is here. So thank you.
And Eric, if you'd be willing to share, I would love the list of like Wasteful Witch and those other ideas, because that's just really cool. We obviously would give you credit, but I think that's always inspiring, right? Just to have some of those playful ways to connect with students.
And we are creating the teacher resources that go along with the book to use in the classroom.
Right. And so, you know, we didn't mention this, but we always do a focus group of students before we publish the book. So we give illustrations. I'll be honest, we've been through 12 different illustrators, because we give the illustrations to kids and they give us the feedback and they say, yay or nay, we like this, we don't like this. And so that is a main driver, is giving it to kids before this book is actually finalized. So thank you for that, Eric. Frank.
So Erin and Josh, it's awesome to have you back. I wish you were at EERE right now so much. I'm reassembling the federal agencies on this work, and that's going to be hard to fill your shoes. It's impossible. So it's great to be with you. One of the things, and I said it to Josh when we were kicking it around a little bit, but I think it's a general principle, is try and find the things that are counterintuitive, because you know, as we go into this massive transformation of every sector that humans have in order to address climate change, there are people doing things that are completely not what you would think of when you think about this transformation. I'm thinking about the Harley Davidson electric bike project manager. Right. And so if you saw the way up, the Ian McGregor, you know, the from the tip of South America to LA, the woman who led the bike that they rode was a Harley Davidson electric bike project team manager, a wonderful woman who helped them amazingly. But what I'm really trying to signal is, like, the solar installer, the wind technician, those are totally two of the 26, right?
Right.
So I would encourage you guys to really dig hard to find the hard job, to spark the imagination and expand the scope of what they're thinking about when it comes to this.
I like what you said, really, because when you're reading this as 8 years old, it's not about, am I going to be that job someday? It's about seeing the potential and possibility to change the world. So thank you, Frank.
Sure.
No, that's helpful. And I just read, like, FedEx is going to, for example, make all its vehicles electric, right? So who's in charge of that, right?
Yep.
And how does that decision get made? And some of those factoids as well. And
let's go Laura, and then Jim, and then Art. I think Art had his hand up too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see everybody's.
Art first, because he's been waiting quite some time.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Art,
sorry,
then Laura,
Art.
then Jim. Go ahead, Art.
Good. I was just thinking to highlight people like the people on this call, and the resources and the workshops that they give for teachers. So I think a lot of kids don't realize that their teachers actually still learn, and it's a nice way to bring that out.
Absolutely. We definitely will have, one of the profiles will be an energy educator, and we'll definitely have links to the clean resources.
Yes. Fantastic. There is a great group of people doing this work already. Josh, you had the names.
Yeah. Laura, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. One of the things that you could, talking about STEAM, how to bring art into this, there's plenty of solar panel art installations that are around, like trees and such, or we're going to have one this summer that's going to be a butterfly that's covered with solar fabric.
Oh, I love it.
And so that would be a good place to bring an artist in to the energy.
That is
I
awesome,
love that.
Laura. That is awesome. My favorite webinar of 2020 was the Earth Day Network did an artist conversation on impacting young people through their art and climate and earth. It was incredible. So yes, I'm glad you just said that. Erin, we have to do that.
No, I love that. And I was just thinking about, like, the solar bike paths even, right? Yeah.
Hey, Jim, what was your question, comment?
I I had a comment more than a question. I think sometimes we see things on the landscape that might cause some curiosity. It does for my grandchildren. And in Wisconsin, wind turbine farms are a real big deal these days. And you'll see the wind turbine parts being transported on highways or on our waterways, carried through the Great Lakes. And I think, something that young girls see all the time and may wonder about how did that get to be, would be a fruitful thing. And another one would be forests, and a forester would be a good opportunity for role models, because planting forests, I think, are really, really important.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. There's such a connection, right, between climate and energy, and that's what forest reminded me of, right? And that synergy between how we inhabit our earth and protect it and grow, and also understand our own energy consumption and production. Shani, you had a question. Your hand's up. Did I say that right?
Cheney.
Cheney. Okay. Thanks.
Just to quickly add on to the STEAM, kind of incorporating the arts, I do a lot of work with reading and writing teachers and students. They've been getting really excited about Cli-Fi, and we've been looking at like N.K. Jemisin and Octavia Butler.
Yeah.
And they're really great about just talking about how you kind of need to research and nerd out and become an expert on all the science in order to make your Cli-Fi really compelling, and around like the kind of world building. And so that's a really exciting way to kind of fold in the arts.
Can you type in, is there a URL for Cli-Fi? I just don't know how to spell it. So that'd be great.
Sorry, yeah, it's like climate fiction. It's just, it's not a URL. It's just.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a URL that would go right. Okay.
It's like it's just a genre of writing. And I think N.K. Jemisin and Octavia Butler are two, BIPOC female authors that are really great.
Thank you.
That's an absolute interesting twist on a career we would highlight. I think we're coming at it from the energy side, but really who's inspiring kids in these careers in different ways is really what we want.
Well, and when you listen to N.K. Jemisin talk about how she world builds and how she studies mountains and forests and energy and resources, like that's how you create exciting worlds, is really understanding our human world.
Yeah.
I do see your comment, Patrick. We have not reached out to the people at All We Can Save, but we will now. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if anyone has, and this is just a real sincere ask, if anyone has a contact that they think we should reach out to, we're happy. We would love to. I mean, we're really in the networking phase right now to try and, see who wants to partner and work on this with us. So feel free to share those contacts.
And to that point, Patrick has, I think, kind of 2 links that will live with this group and after, where we've asked for specific nominations, and where we ask if you want to be involved and follow up with us after today, you can tell us that. You can also tell us in the chat, which you've all been doing, and fantastic, but it will live on after today. So if you have those thoughts of how to share it with us besides just email. Art.
Yeah, just another comment around energy. There tends to be an overemphasis on the sources of energy as opposed to energy efficiency. And I think there's so many opportunities to highlight places around the home or the school where energy efficiency comes in. So school janitor person who helps with the recycling or anything. But and a great person just to know about is Amory Lovins. If you don't know him, he has been an expert on. He's a physicist, but so much of what we need to do with renewable energy works better if the energy load is much less because people have been energy efficient.
Yeah, we definitely are. That's a great comment. We're definitely planning as well, include one of the careers that wasn't on our list but is weatherization technicians and weatherization, building weatherization. So great.
And Tiffany, you've had your hand up, sorry.
No, you're fine. Great. So I was an elementary teacher for 27 years, and I wholeheartedly agree when you say the earlier you can hit kids, the better. Absolutely. And I want to reiterate what Cheney and Nancy were saying about science communication. I think, you know, the champions like Emily and people, kids really need to see themselves reflected, that they have a part of science and climate solutions at a really young age. And yes, I agree that we have to encourage all the STEAM parts of STEAM, but also just that science communication component, because kids from a really young age can be very convincing of things. And if they can see, you know, I've talked to a lot of climate scientists that said they feel like they research and they work in a silo, but but we need those communicators about climate adaptation and climate mitigation, and anything you can do to do the A part of STEAM and the science communication. I would really encourage books about that.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Josh, we got to come up. I don't know the exact, I mean, I know SciComm is the jargon on social media, but is it a SciComm job? Is that, you know, we're going to have to figure out what that career job is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To highlight this piece.
You have the link, Erin, for the nominate form?
I do. So I can drop it in here. Just give me one moment to do that. And Josh, why don't you drop in our website, just so that if you want to stay in tune with us, you can. As Josh said, we're still, I mean, we've got a list, but we're still in that open phase for more careers and more superheroes. So we are open to your input and feedback, and thank you all for helping build a sustainable future and for giving us some time today to kind of share what we're working on. And we're happy to be back in the energy sphere.
And thanks for the work you do, and your comments today are spectacular. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Erin and Josh.
Yay.
Thanks everyone for all the suggestions and everything in the chat. It was a really vibrant discussion.
Yeah.
Any last things before we call it quits for the day?
I just wanted to check, as the list, you're getting all these lists and ideas, if those can be turned into a knowledge base, at least to circle back into ACE with the connections and videos for the follow through.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Nancy. Josh and I have realized that we have now a treasure trove of what I like to call 1 million women in energy, right? Energy superheroes, and what can we do with that treasure trove? So we are definitely interested in doing that. And to that point, there are some community colleges who are also interested in creating videos specifically for their audiences. So we're happy to collaborate with that treasure trove of people. Just let us know. And I think you're right that ACE would be a good starting point.
Erin, one quick question as we go out is international. So many of these stories, some of the most important work is done not inside this country.
Right.
Yes. And is that a priority for you guys as you balance the perspectives here? Or do you want these all to be people who are American or are American working in America, or American working elsewhere, or anywhere in the world?
We are open to, Josh, you're on mute. He's trying to talk. He's like, before I talk, Frank asked me, Josh. We are open to anywhere in the world. We've seen obviously a lot of nominations actually from Canada. I've been in conversations with numerous groups in Canada who are super excited and like, how do we showcase our women and American? But we are interested in a global perspective. I think the challenge, right, is sharing some of those global factoids and analogies with kids. They might be more regional, right? Or, you know, more Eurocentric, et cetera. So, but we are not opposed to global nominations.
We've got some fabulous climate activists in Africa who are really vibrant and would make great sources.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think our main readership though is in the United States. And so I always found the National Climate Assessment the idea that there was regional impacts that teachers could then say, it's not about polar bears, it's about what's happening in Tennessee. Right. And so having regional stories is important, but I think we need we will include some global perspective as well.
Yes. And we did that in the first book. So if any of you aren't, familiar with our work, we try and honor what we commit to and what building a sustainable future. And thank you all today